Regardless what happens outside Singapore, we know what we have to do domestically, and that is we must strengthen our economy. The world around us is changing very quickly. Technology is changing people's lifestyles, their behaviors. Businesses are updating the way they operate. New businesses are emerging and disrupting the status quo. Our companies and our workers have been feeling the disruption for some time now. In the last few years, our strategy has been to restructure our economy, to upgrade our workforce. And we are helping businesses to transform and adapt, and helping workers to reskill and retrain and take on new jobs. We are making our economy more resilient and competitive. This is not a new theme. You know the message. I've spoken about this for many, many days. So I don't have to hammer the same song, but I want to take 3 specific examples of industries which are transforming and talk to you about them: transport, banking, and retail and logistics. I want to use these examples to give you a concrete sense of what is happening around us, how technological disruption is playing out, what it means for our people, for our businesses, for our workers, and also what the government is doing to help businesses and workers to adapt to these changes, and what you as workers can do to help yourself to take advantage of the schemes available and seize the new opportunities. Firstly, transport. As brothers and sisters from NTA and NHCVA know, ridership apps like Grab and Uber have radically transformed the taxi industry in the last few years. And you heard Brother Chun Sing talk about it just now. Many commuters today use apps on their smartphones to book rides. Today, 1 in every 2 rides is booked on Uber or Grab. If you just go back 5 years, only 1 in 5 rides was pre-booked. And in those days, no app. Pre-book means you telephone and you speak to an operator and you try and book a taxi. It's not surprising that the apps have changed commuter habits, because using an app is much more convenient than calling up a taxi company on the phone, being put on hold, maybe. It's more predictable than standing on the street and hailing a taxi, especially on a public holiday like today. It gives you more options. What type of car to hire, how much you want to pay, whether to share the ride with someone else to have a discount. I have no doubt commuters have benefited. Of course, the taxi companies have had to scramble and to adapt quickly to this landscape. Some partnered with Grab or Uber. Others have gone dynamic pricing on their own. And the regulator, LTA, has also had to keep up to set suitable rules for the new players, to revise the rules for the taxi operators to level the playing field. Today, the industry is still in flux. Recently, Uber sold its business to Grab, but before they could finish selling, the CCCS, Competition and Consumer Commission of Singapore, stepped in to examine the deal, because we want to ensure competition in the industry, make sure commuters always have choices, make sure taxi drivers are not locked in. Other players may enter the market. We hear many rumors and stories in the newspapers. We'll see. But we can certainly expect further industry developments. The industry is in flux in many countries. Last month, or earlier this month, I was in China visiting, last month in April, I was in China visiting Hsien. It's China's equivalent of Uber and Grab, but it's much huger. 20 million drivers, 450 million users. Hsien does rental cars, But it has other products and services as well. On-demand buses, because they know where the commuters are, they can schedule the buses, route the buses to pick them up. Using data from drivers and cars to manage city traffic. In some cities, they collaborated with the city government to operate the city's traffic light system, to flow the traffic through the city more smoothly. Looking further ahead, TT is working on self-driving vehicles. This is one of the experimental vehicles. TT believes self-driving cars will be a reality in 10 or 15 years' time for public transport, and maybe even sooner than that. In Singapore, our buses are still driven by bus captains, but the bus captains are now assisted by controllers sitting in the depot who monitor where they are because there's GPS, and who will guide them, tell them, speed up a bit, slow down a bit, manage the flow, make sure the buses arrive one by one and not 3 or 4 at once. I don't think bus captains have to worry about self-driving vehicles, because I don't expect to see driverless buses on the roads anytime soon. Our MRT trains are mostly driverless, except for north, south, and east-west lines. But although they are driverless, in fact, the operators put somebody in the train to be in charge. Because when something goes wrong, just in case, to have somebody there, he can respond straight away, he can act, solve the problem, the train can move without causing delay. So the same with buses. When they become self-driving, I'm quite sure we'll still need bus captains. And the driving will be easier because it will be less laborious. You can just monitor what's happening and make sure the computer doesn't make a mistake. But it will mean the bus captains will be able to give better service, to expand their job, to look after the passengers, and to give the passengers a safer and a more reliable ride. It means the bus and train captains will have to adapt. And for that, they can take the cue from taxi drivers. I know when ride-sharing first came, taxi drivers had their grumbles, but in truth, taxi drivers generally have adapted quite well to the market changes. Most taxi drivers were already smartphone users. They just needed to learn how to use the new apps. And even the older drivers didn't have much problem because the apps were quite easy to use, and the companies provided training.